Let's see. Let's make sure we are live on YouTube. And we're live on Facebook. All right, I think it's happening. All right. Hey, Auntie Sylvia. Okay, in Texas. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started. If you are with us, just drop a comment in the chat so that I can say hello and know who's here. But as I said, we're going to go ahead and get started with our content. So my name is Javon Bracey. I am the founder and curator of the Purpletuity Project, which is a lupus awareness and advocacy organization. I was born and raised in New Orleans, and I currently reside in Denver. I am a minister at a church here, and I also do some contract-based and project-based work with faith-based and community organizations. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2016, and I launched the Purpletuity Project last spring to lend my voice to the lupus awareness and advocacy conversation, and also wanting to build community. Since May is Lupus Awareness Month, I wanted to use that community that I've been working to cultivate to raise our collective consciousness. So I had the idea to go live at 5 p.m. Mountain Time each Monday to engage lupus-related topics. So this is our 5th and final installment. So I see my brother is here. Hey, Mario. Auntie Cookie's here. Dad's here. Dia's here. Mama's here. Awesome. Thank y'all for joining me. It's not showing me the same number, so but I'm glad you all are here. And be sure to share and like and comment and all that stuff so we can get the engagement up. So like I said, this is our 5th and final installment, and today we're going to focus on mental health and emotional support. So you may know already, but mental health, in addition to being Lupus Awareness Month, is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So it's definitely fitting to have this discussion. As I've done each week, I want to give the disclaimer that I am not a healthcare professional. All of this information comes from my own personal experience, as well as information that's offered and compiled by organizations like the Lupus Foundation of America, the Lupus Research Alliance, and others. So we are going to dive in. Hey, Sarah. The first 4 episodes are still available on YouTube, Facebook, and shorter versions on Instagram. But I definitely want to begin with a brief overview that kind of generally goes over what we talked about in those first 4 episodes. Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease. Chronic simply means ongoing. And as is the case with many autoimmune diseases, the antibodies that my body is supposed to produce to protect me against infection and injury are actually attacking healthy tissue. So this manifests as inflammation, joint pain, skin rashes, sensitivity to light, fevers, and extreme fatigue, which, full disclosure, I have been experiencing fatigue all day today. Just one of those things. It can also manifest as problems with the kidneys, lungs, and brain, in addition to other signs and symptoms. There's no one test to diagnose lupus. A combination of tracking those signs and symptoms, the results of blood and urine tests, and the findings of physical examinations can lead to the diagnosis of lupus. And there are times, even after diagnosis and treatment, when one might experience an increase in the severity of symptoms, and that's called a lupus flare. Flares can last for days or even weeks. Flares can be triggered by weather stuff, as well as stress and emotional and/or physical stress, as well as other things. There are various types of treatments, from prescription medications to diet and exercise, and also other experimental treatments. 90% of the people dealing with lupus are women. Lupus also disproportionately impacts Black people, Black women, women of color, and in those cases, it's often more severe. No one knows why that is exactly, which is why research is important. We do know a lot, however, and we talked about this last week, about medical racism, implicit bias, and other factors that have an effect on diagnosis and care. Lupus has a grave economic impact on patients and their families, as well as their communities of support. The mean annual total cost for people with lupus is $50,000. And that includes direct costs like, healthcare costs, what it costs to go to the doctor and get your meds, as well as indirect costs like loss of income. For various reasons, many people experience that loss of income or can't work at all. And some even receive disability payments. Yep, fatigue here too. I feel you, Sarah. I promise I do. Just one of those days. So last week, as I ended, I mentioned the fact that not only does lupus affect our bodies and our pockets, but it also takes an emotional toll as well. Grief, fear, anxiety, and depression are everyday considerations for people with lupus. They can be just as invisible and isolating as some of the other symptoms. So that's what we're going to dive into first a little bit more. I remember when I was first diagnosed, not knowing much about lupus. I knew a few people who had it, but I didn't know much about it for myself. So I definitely remember experiencing a wave of grief at diagnosis. What would happen to all the plans I had for my life? What is this going to mean for me professionally? We also talked a bit last week about the effect that lupus can have on childbearing. And so not getting too deep into it, but these were all things that I had to personally reconcile with and deal with and talk about with my family, with my therapist, and all of that stuff, because it's real grief. And for many, just like grieving anything else, it's not a one-time thing. It's something that can resurface over time. So as we talked about during our second episode with signs and symptoms, lupus can also directly affect the brain and cause cognitive dysfunction. So this looks like brain fog, general confusion, memory loss, forgetfulness, difficulty thinking and processing, etc. And of course, those things can have an effect on your mental health as well. Most of the signs and symptoms of lupus are invisible, but some are visible, like face rashes and weight fluctuations. So some people lose tons of weight and some people gain weight, sometimes because of medications or for other factors like being a little bit more sedentary than normal. Of course, this can in turn impact one's self-esteem and lead to mental and emotional health concerns. As we've discussed over the past few weeks, lupus causes pain, discomfort, and/or fatigue that can impact your quality of life. So last week, when we talked about the economic impact, we kind of focused on work. So loss of wages, having to be on disability, and work and purpose or vocation or calling, depending on, what your context is, what you call it, they don't always go hand in hand, but think about your ability or inability to be able to do whatever you desire and how that can have a profound impact on your sense of purpose. So beyond work and purpose, Your participation in fun, enjoyable, non-work activities can be affected as well. So I'll give another life example. Hiking is a big deal here in Colorado. But the couple of times I've been hiking, it took me a while to bounce back. The fatigue, I have the issue with pleurisy, the inflammation of the lining of my lungs. So my lungs were affected, inflammation in my joints, and it's pretty much not worth doing because of how painful it can be. And, just the idea of being social in general, beyond your feelings about your appearance, also your stamina, your literal lack of capacity to be out and about. Or, you may be fine in the beginning, but then kind of start to feel some aches and pains or fatigue as the day or night goes on. And then the impact on relationships. Canceling or making adjustments to plans because of unexpected flares, how hard it can be to explain to people what's going on. People can't really see what's happening, so it can be difficult for them to understand. And all of that can lead to social isolation, which of course can lead to mental and emotional health concerns. Hey, Mara. All right. So if you have any comments, definitely drop them in the chat, or any questions about anything that I'm going through, definitely drop those there as well. Around 60% of lupus patients also struggle with poor sleep quality or sleep disturbances. Lupus symptoms can be both triggers and consequences of a lack of quality rest. And ironically, sleep issues can make it difficult to recognize clinical depression because clinical depression has some of the same symptoms of active lupus, especially with regards to sleep and rest. Another thing to think about, chronic diseases like lupus are unpredictable. So illness-related uncertainty can then give way to anxiety about money, about future plans, about independence, as well as depression. For example, feeling like you'll never be free of lupus. Lastly, some of the necessary medications like the corticosteroids can actually cause anxiety, as well as personality and mood changes and other psychological problems. So feelings of frustration and hopelessness, anxiety and depression, cycles of grief and fear and sadness, those are all normal and expected feelings. We are human, and there should be no shame. We should not feel any shame in experiencing the full range of human emotions. So just like it's human to feel joy, it's also human to feel sadness. It's also human to feel frustration and disappointment and fear, all of that stuff. The important thing is to deal with these things in healthy ways. So the first step that I would suggest is continuing to educate yourself and those around you about the ins and outs of lupus. The more you know about how lupus affects people and affects you specifically, the better equipped you are to deal with the effects. So for example, I looked at the forecast and I saw that it was going to be a really rainy weekend, like all day yesterday as well as today. So I was on the phone with my mom and I was like, child, I know I'm going to have a bit of a tough time over the next couple of days because of the shift in the weather. The next thing is practicing healthy habits. So diet, exercise, and rest. Also prioritizing managing your relationship to stimulants and depressants. Beyond that, developing a stress management toolbox. So prayer, meditation, yoga, stretching, taking walks, coloring, doing other things that bring you joy and reduce your stress level. So making sure you're practicing those healthy habits and doing things that help you to manage your stress. Also, expanding your support system. Definitely consider joining a support group or connecting with other lupus patients on a one-on-one basis. I'm hoping to start one online through the Purpletuity Project. Also consider talking with a licensed counselor or a therapist or even a trusted clergy member. There's a blog on the Purpletuity website about mental health, and I have links to organizations like Therapy for Black Girls, Beam, and Seeker, among others, that are specifically working to support mental wellness in the Black community. I won't go into detail about that for the sake of time, but I'm definitely happy to, journey with someone who may need a little bit of peer support for parsing through those resources and figuring out where to start. So I see a question in the chat. What advice would you give to young women newly diagnosed with lupus? So I think some of those things that I just mentioned in terms of educating yourself, first and foremost, being aware of what lupus is from reputable sources, of course, educating yourself and educating those around you. Being connected to healthcare providers. So whether it's your primary care physician, oftentimes lupus patients will see a rheumatologist or a nephrologist. So whoever your healthcare team is, being communicative with them and also advocating for yourself. So asking questions if you don't understand something, asking them to break down the terms, asking them, follow-up questions when you don't understand what's going on or when you want to talk about treatment and things like that. And then also the other things I mentioned in terms of de-stressing, the things that you do on a daily basis, whether it's therapy, meditation, yoga, those healthy eating and diet and exercise habits. Those are the things that I would definitely recommend. And then also connecting with other people who are navigating a similar journey to you. So other people who have lupus, I think it can be really helpful. And I know that it has been for people that I've spoken with through the Purpletuity Project, to just talk to somebody who can speak the same language as you, who knows and understands. Like Sarah and I were able to commiserate for a bit about the fatigue. Everybody can understand those things and that's okay, but finding people who can. So I think that those things are helpful. And if you know somebody, if anybody who's watching or listening right now knows somebody, I'm happy to, from the place of providing peer support, to talk with anyone. I've talked to several people who've been newly diagnosed, and we've had some really great conversations. So that is what I would recommend. Great question. Great question. All right. So let us proceed. One of the things I talked about was support. So the next few statements are for people who are supporting loved ones with lupus. So just to give some tips about what might be helpful. Remember, lupus is complex and unpredictable. So the first thing I would say would be to them as well, just to adopt a disposition of being a lifelong learner. Continue to be willing to empower yourself with knowledge about lupus in general, but also about your loved one's case specifically, because remember, lupus can present very differently from case to case. So just keep those lines of communication. And as another personal caveat, this communication is most helpful for me when I'm not having a flare-up, because when I am having a full-on flare-up, I get sad and irritable, and I really kind of prefer to be by myself. So in sharing things with my loved ones, I try my best to do that outside of high need times, so that when I'm ill, I can just focus my energy on feeling better. So sharing articles or having conversations about, what the doctor said or what have you, I try to do that when I'm not super sick, so that the conversation will land well, and we're able to have a very good and healthy conversation. Also, another tip for loved ones who are caring for those with lupus, remember that change is inevitable. So after diagnosis, your loved one may need to make lifestyle changes to ensure that they stay healthy. This could include making adjustments to their diet and medication regimen, but it could also mean cutting back on social activities to mitigate pain and fatigue. So things that you used to do and activities you used to partake in may not be helpful for people at this stage in their life. So as we already discussed, the effect of mental health is real. So they may feel guilty about canceling these plans. They may feel anxious or unsure about finances. They may feel sad about the way that their body is changing. So it's important to be considerate of all of these emotions as you navigate conversations and plans. And as you engage in these conversations, don't attempt to make unrealistic comparisons. Like that time you had a cold is not quite the same. And definitely don't attempt to minimize or negate whatever it is that they're feeling. There's a blog on the Purpletuity website that's specifically devoted to this conversation. So there's one about mental health, and there's another one specifically about, having a loved one with lupus and how you should approach that. It also has links like to other articles, specifically about things to say or ways to approach conversations, as well as what not to say. So stay away from saying things like, "You don't look sick," or my favorite, "Have you tried?" Like, you would be surprised at the amount of things that I've tried and that either didn't work or didn't work the way that people suggested. So it specifically goes into detail about not only what not to say or what to stay away from, but also the reasons why those things might be harmful. Beyond words, acts of service might be helpful. So supporting your loved one in creating or maintaining a care file with their medical records, medications, insurance information, etc., and or a care plan, appointment schedule, what to do in an emergency, etc. Again, I have links to that and a template even on the blog. Offering a ride to the doctor, helping to pick up groceries or meds, those things could be helpful as well. Or even just sitting with them. The ministry of presence is real. So sometimes just knowing that somebody is there for you. What isn't helpful in terms of support? I think that that's a very personal question, a very individualized. The answers to that will be individualized. So what is not helpful for me? Thank you, Nia, for dropping that in the chat. How kind of you. What is helpful and what is not helpful vary from person to person. So as I said, for me, I don't like to talk a whole lot. As talkative as I am, I just I kind of go inward and just like to rest and and what have you. So trying to have a conversation or trying to push me to get up and get out and get some air is probably not the move. You're gonna get mean girl Vine if you do that. But but for other people that might be helpful, kind of helping them to move around a little bit more and things like that. So I think that's my point in saying that this is very personalized and individualized. And my point is saying that you should keep those lines of communication open. Another question specifically about the challenges that I found navigating the healthcare system as an African-American woman. So I addressed this a little bit in some of the other videos and conversations, but certainly just not having my pain believed, getting the runaround, people not being willing to take into consideration the whole picture. So kind of being dismissive of symptoms that I was experiencing. Like, oh, that's just for African Americans, that just happens with Black people, you'll be fine. I have not experienced there are some people who have reported experiencing things like not being able to get the proper pain medication and things like that because people believe that they're just trying to over medicate or what have you. But most of my challenge is kind of centered around people not believing me, people not hearing me. And even when it comes to things that were beyond lupus, so, having to get my eyes checked regularly and having other things that I need to check on regularly as some sort of secondary things because of medication or what have you. A lot of it has really centered around people not believing me to be an expert in my own health. So certainly they are experts in this disease, theoretically, and they've seen other people, but not believing me about my own pain and my own experience. I think that's the best way to kind of sum that up. And Nia's laughing, probably about me being mean girl Vine. Sorry. Okay, I'll move on. One of the organizations that I mentioned, Beam, is doing great work on the mental health front. And they posted an infographic for providing peer support for mental health that I think is really helpful. So the acronym is LAPIS, which is LAPIS or LAPIS. Listen, affirm their experiences, partner to navigate care and seek services, initiate self and community care plans, and seek out help as needed. So I'll be sure to post that graphic on social media pages as well as the blog as well. And the last tip I have for caretakers, take care of yourself. Establish and honor healthy boundaries for yourself. Seek external support if things begin to take a mental, emotional, financial, whatever kind of toll on you. If the caretaking begins to take a toll on you, definitely seek support. And remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So the last thing that I want to say with regard to providing support to lupus patients is relative to the pandemic. Over the past 15 months, many accommodations that people with disabilities like lupus have been asking for, virtual meetings, the ability to work from home, flexible hours, all of these things have been made necessary by the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, many of those requests were denied or said to be impossible. So as we are in this moment of rushing back to normal, I hope that we remember that normal was at best inaccessible and at worst actively harmful for many people. So if you are in a position of authority or influence, and really from wherever you are, I hope this moment inspires you to expand the boundaries of how you imagine and implement what it means to be in community, and that we can press forward and create something better, something more life-giving, something more holy than normal. So that is really it, y'all. This is the last episode in the series. I really appreciate y'all for rocking with me this month. 5 Mondays in a row. I do not know how Oprah did this every day for 25 years. Please stay connected with the Purpletuity Project. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit the website to browse the blog. Nia dropped one of the links in the chat on Facebook. But definitely the other blogs as well that talk about this topic, as well as the other topics that we addressed, and link to some more really good information. T-shirts are still available. If you make a donation of $20 or more, you can get a t-shirt just like this one. And the last blog on the website is actually like a wall of fame of supporters who are wearing their t-shirts. So if you wear one, no matter when you get it, I'll be sure to add your picture to that so that we can see that you are supporting. If you have any other questions about this stuff, feel free to drop them in the chat right now so we can get to them right quick before we wrap it up. Otherwise, feel free to shoot me a DM at any time or an email, thepurpletuityproject@gmail.com. There's also a form you can fill out on the website, and that goes to that email as well. So we went kind of hard this month, so I'm going to take a break. But I do have some ideas about things to do. So outside of Lupus Awareness Month, there'll be some things coming up. Yes. Thank you. Preach. That's what I be doing. I be trying to preach. Yes, thank you for your support. Thank you for all of you for your support. That is the goal, to keep people informed. I think that's the first step, is just equipping yourself with awareness, and then you're able to move on from there. Thank you for being here every week. Yeah, I kind of hate to see it come to an end, but also this was intense. Like I say, I don't know how Oprah did it. She was, every day. What? Wow, that's a lot. Yes. Shout out to my family. Can't end this without shouting out my family, who have just been extremely supportive, from my parents and my sister helping out with the t-shirts, to my brother and my cousin sharing everything, to my aunties always in the comments or sharing it on their pages and buying t-shirts, all of that stuff. So thank y'all so much for your support. Yes, we'll continue to soldier on. I'm gonna go to bed probably. I know it's only 5:30, but yeah, knowledge is power. And again, if you have any questions or need anything, if you want more information about getting a t-shirt, definitely reach out and we will make sure that you get that. But I love you all. I'm grateful for you all. Thank you for supporting me this Lupus Awareness Month. And I look forward to bigger and better things. So I will talk to y'all later. Have a good evening. Be safe. Stay well. Continue to share this information with anyone who might need it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.